Okay, so for the first one, it's pretty easy. That's just in the calculator. You type in sine 60, and it gives you, what, 0.866 about?
Yep.
Cosine 60 gives you 0.5.
No.
Tangent of 60, 1.732. Secant of 60. To find secant of 60, you're going to do cosine of 60. Now, when you put in cosine, it should give you that open parentheses. Type in 60, close the parentheses, and hit that x negative 1 or reciprocal key. Hit equals. It should give you 2. Cosecant is going to be sine, close parentheses, or open parentheses 60, close parentheses, x negative 1. Now, somebody asked you the other day, can I just use the sine negative 1 function? No, that's different. We're going to learn about that today. So this is going to give us, what, 1.15? Cotangent 60 is going to be the tangent of 60, x negative 1, which ends up being 0.577. Now, I'll give you guys a second to make sure your calculators will come up with those, that you know how to enter those. Richard, I think yours was a little bit different. Did you get yours to work?
I got the secant working on the next.
Okay.
Cosecant.
I'm gonna get foot up on the secant and cosecant. I'm gonna hit the sine for the secant.
Yeah, the cotangent's easy because it's just the tangent. But yeah, the secant and cosecant seem backwards. It seems like the secant should go with sine, but it doesn't. Secant goes with cosine. And it does, it feels backwards. You're absolutely correct. So, what we're going to look at today is how to do the opposite. Let's say that we know the sine of an angle. We're going to do a sine of A equals 0.743. How do I find angle A? Well, this is where that sine negative 1 key comes in, that second function. There's 3 commands that mean exactly the same thing. There's something called an arc sine. There's something called an inverse sine, or sine negative 1. They all mean the same thing. Remember, in our math operations so far, every operation has had an inverse. Like if you just pick a number like 11, if I add 4 to it, I get 15. If I subtract 4 from it, I get back to 11. If I take my 11 and multiply by 4, I get 44. If I divide by 4, I get back to 11. If I take 11 and I go to the third power, I get Is that right? No, that's not right.
3, 3, 1.
Yeah, 1, 3, 3, 1, not 1, 2, 3. 1, 3, 3, 1. If I take the third root of 1, 3, 3, 1, 3, 1, I get 11. Every operation has an inverse. Adding can be undone by subtracting. Multiplying can be undone by dividing. A power can be undone by a root. A sine can be undone by an inverse sine. And all 3 of those are different notations for the exact same thing. So in an equation like x plus 4 equals 11, I would solve for x by subtracting 4. Because what's been done to x is it's had 4 added to it, so I do the inverse. I subtract the 4 to get rid of it. Well, up here, think of a as like our variable. What's been done to a? The sine has been taken of it. So what am I going to do? The inverse sine. Well, the inverse sine and the sine cancel out, giving me a. The inverse sine of 0.743. Now this is where you got to do second sine. 0.743. 48 degrees, basically. 47.98, but we'll call it 48 degrees. Does that make sense? So, let's say that we have sine of A equals 0.239. Cosine of B equals 0.777. Tangent of C equals 4. Find angles A, B, and C.
Second once like equation, and it comes up
Oh.
with a menu when I do the tangent stuff.
Really? Oh, okay. I see what it is. You got a double pump key. Hit it once it's signed, hit it a second time, it converts to inverse sign. You don't have to use the shift key. Just double pump the sign key. I haven't seen a calculator that works like that in a long time. And that's the newer version of the TI, isn't it?
Yep.
Huh.
Should be.
Yeah, it's just a different version than what most of you have for the TI. It's a fancier version, but it's going back to an older technology that I haven't seen for a while.
I have a calculator at home that's like $150.
Oh, the old graphing calculator they made you have for high school?
Yep, and all that and stats.
Yep, that's the same as the one that's on my screen here.
How did you get that on the screen? Is that something you have to buy, or is that?
I teach for a couple of different colleges, and one of the colleges I teach for, because it's online, they bought a license for that for me. Yeah, it does cost like $45 for a license for it.
Okay.
Although, if you actually own one of the calculators, there are downloadable things that you can download it for free, but it won't work unless you actually, if you've got the cable to plug your calculator into the computer. There's actually a piece of information you need in your calculator that you have to download into the program to make it work on your computer
So
screen.
you only have to do it once.
Yeah, you only do it once and then it's there. And you can do the same for your smartphone. It'll download into your smartphone too if you have the link for your calculator. Okay, so this first one, you're just doing inverse sine of 0.239. What do you get? What's that? 14? Give it to 2 decimal places for me. 13.82? 83. Okay. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have rounded that one off to... Yeah, that was my fault. So then this one, again, the angle B, if cosine is 0.777, 39.01 degrees. And then if the tangent to C is 4, 75.96 degrees. Perfect. Now I'm going to throw one up here. Let's say that the sine of angle D equals 1.42. Without punching that in your calculator, can you tell me what that is? Okay, go ahead and punch it in your calculator.
I'm gonna say.
You know your calculator is not wrong, Dale.
Okay.
It's saying error. Why? Yeah, sine is always inside the circle, right? So it can never be bigger than the radius of the circle, and the radius of the circle is 1. The largest a sine can ever be is a 1. Remember, sine is always between -1 and 1. Same with cosine. Tangent, however, doesn't have that restriction. Tangent can be from -infinity to +infinity. So if I tell you that the secant of an angle is 2.47, now remember, this is all about inverting the original secant function. To find the secant of an angle, let's say I'm finding the secant of, well, we found the secant of 60 degrees. Remember what we did was we found the cosine of 60 degrees, and then we hit that reciprocal key, and that gave us the number, right? Which happened to be 2. If we were going to reverse that calculation, remember, just like solving an equation, if I have 3x minus 7 equals 14, what would be the first thing I did here? I would add the 7, and then I'd divide by 3. Same here. If I were solving this, I would undo the x negative 1. Well, guess what the opposite of x negative 1 is? It's also x negative 1. It's its own inverse. The reciprocal of a reciprocal is the original number. The reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1. The reciprocal of 2 over 1 is 1/2. It takes you back to where you started. So I'd take the reciprocal, and then I would do the inverse cosine. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter 2.47. Well, actually, I should be careful. Your calculators work a little differently now. What you're going to do is you're going to do the inverse cosine. You're going to press the inverse cosine key, and it'll give you the parentheses. 2.47, but now I'm going to do the reciprocal key inside the parentheses before I close it. What that's telling your calculator is do that reciprocal before you do the inverse cosine. Just like we're saying over here, you got to do the reciprocal first. Here we did the reciprocal outside the parentheses, saying do the cosine before you do the reciprocal. So what'd you guys get? 66.12 degrees. Works for me. Not percent, degrees.
Okay, when you're entering that, what are you entering in the calculator for the x?
For your x negative 1, you should have a reciprocal key on your calculator.
Oh, here it is.
There you go. Yep.
I don't see it either.
Yours, you got that 1 over x key, remember, Richard?
Oh, yeah.
Or the 1 over box key? You guys gonna get it to work? So let's say the cosecant of b equals 2. Any guesses on how I'd enter that?
Well, you're going to have to use sine.
Inverse sine.
Inverse sine. Then you do 2. And then I go over the parentheses.
Okay. That's the hardest thing to remember is whether the x negative 1 goes inside the parentheses or outside. If it's an inverse, it goes inside. If it's a regular function, it goes outside. So inverse, it's inside. Regular function, outside. And what do you get there?
30. I bring this car 1 time, I know.
Yeah.
I'm not counting from 1 to 30 because I can't count by 10 in Spanish.
I'm trying to remember. I know 20 is 20.
Yeah. Okay, we will get back to you.
Isn't it 3 dieci? Is 30? I think 3 dieci is 30. I used to be able to count in Spanish, German, French.
Oh, college French, I think, from English. I had 7
It's a square and a half.
senior year. Then senior year, I went to college class.
Let's say that the cotangent of C equals 3.5. So what are we going to do?
If it's
Tangent -1, yep. 3.5. Yep.
Yeah, look, 15.94 or 95.
15.95, you are correct. So I'm going to have you try a few on your own here. So if cosecant of A equals 1.073, secant of B equals 3.41, and cotangent of C equals 0.098. Find A, B, and C. Is it Trenta?
Completely different spell from what I was going to spell it. T-R-E-I-N-T-A. That's Venti, 20.
Venti, I knew it was 20. We can add foreign language to another topic that I'm not talented in, along with art.
Fletcher's considered not doing
So what do we get here? Co
68.74.
so sine inverse 1.073 x negative 1 is what?
68.74.
68.74. Good. This one will be cosine inverse 3.41 x negative 1 is 72.95. And this is going to be tangent negative 1 of 0.098 x negative 1. 84.40. Any major questions? Okay, so in the packet that I've given you, we've already done, page 338 through 341. So we're going to continue now on page 341 to 342, 55 through 121, the odds. That's just punching these in the calculators, finding the value of the function and the inverse function for each.
Is it possible to find an angle with one side of a triangle and one angle?
If you have, is it a right triangle?
Yep.
Then you know two angles.
You know,
If it's a right triangle, if you know one of the other angles, you know the third.
Then you
well, if you know
know three.
one of them is 90, or if you only know like one in the base,
Then you
is
know.
it possible to find?
So all you know is the right angle and this side. You need to know one more piece of information. There's 6 pieces of information in a triangle. You got to have at least 3 out of the 6.